Boiled dumplings are one of the simplest foods out there. With just 3 ingredients, you can create one of the most versatile sides in Jamaican cuisine. But today we're going to kick it up a notch. Hey, I'm Nick, and in this video we're making every single Jamaican dumpling, from the classics to the unique ones you've probably never tried before. Before we get started, let me know in the comments which dumpling is your favorite. Great, let's dive in. The first dumpling we're making is a classic plain white flour dumpling. We only need 3 ingredients: 2 cups of all-purpose flour, about half a teaspoon salt, and water. That's it. First, combine the salt and the flour. Once that's done, slowly add water, a little at a time. I'm using a spoon at first to keep things less messy. The exact amount of water can vary, but most boiled dumpling doughs are around 50% hydration. That means the weight of the water is about half the weight of the flour. If you go with less water, about 40%, you will get dumplings that are chewier and tighter. Pro tip, don't overthink it. Just add a little water and mix until the dough comes together. Once the flour is hydrated, we are good to go. Growing up, I always hear that if your bowl is not clean after mixing, you did not do a good job. Look at how clean this one is. The dough will be a bit tight and tough, but don't worry, that's where the next step comes in. I'm going to wrap the dough and let it rest for about 10 minutes. Resting relaxes the dough and makes shaping easier, especially if you made it with less water. Once rested, give it a little stretch and fold. Look at that, smooth and pliable, perfect for shaping. Now, let's talk about dumpling shapes. There are a few with a couple different functions, and I'm going to show you the most popular ones. Pinch off a piece of the dough and fold it over onto itself. This just smooths out the dumpling and give it structure. Roll it between your palms to flatten it out. Press it flat. This dumpling shape is called a cartwheel. This is the type of dumpling we make when we want to cook a quick pot. The thinness not only makes the dumpling cook faster, but it also gives it a satisfying texture that I personally love. The next dumpling we're making is the standard fare. It's the exact same technique. Pinch off a piece of the dough, fold it over, then roll it between your palms to form a ball like this. Use the base of your thumb to press the dumpling flat, and that's it. Resting the dough makes this process a breeze. That's your typical dumpling. Next, we're making what's called spinners. The technique is similar. Pinch off a piece of the dough, fold it over, but instead of flattening, just roll it between your palms until it forms a long noodle-like shape. These chunky noodle-shaped dumplings are perfect for soup and stews. They add a nice chewy bite to your dish. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think we call them spinners because of that spinning motion when shaping them. Finally, there's this dumpling shape I don't have a name for, but my mom used to make a couple of these when the dough was almost done and there wasn't enough left for a standard dumpling. It's like a jumbo spinners or maybe a boiled festival. Great, these are all the dumpling shapes I have for you. Now let's talk about boiling them. For boiled dumpling, your pot should be at a hard boil. Add a pinch of salt to help the dumplings retain their flavor. For the best results, shape your white flour dumpling and place them directly into the boiling water. Letting them rest too long will cause them to relax and lose their neat shape when they hit the pot. As soon as the dumplings are in, you want to carefully stir them. This is just so they don't stick to the pot. Depending on their size, dumplings take 10 to 15 minutes to fully cook. You know they are ready when they start to float. Plain white dumplings are just dumplings in general pair really well with rich saucy foods, like stews, curries, or a crowd favorite, tin mackerel in tomato sauce. It's a super versatile side, but I can't talk about Jamaican dumplings without mentioning the classic combo, dumpling and butter. Piping hot dumplings with butter or margarine were the OG struggle food. I used to have this most Saturday mornings while watching cartoons. Saturday was market day, so most of the food would be finished by then, and dumpling and butter was the go-to. Great. Now that we've covered the basics, let's dive into every Jamaican dumpling variant. In Jamaican cuisine, a variety of grains and vegetables are used to make dumplings. By mixing things up, you get to experiment with different textures ranging from firm and chewy to soft and tender. These additions not only boost flavor but also increase the nutritional value. This makes an already versatile side even more dynamic and accessible to a wider range of palates. Cornmeal dumplings are probably the most popular variant. I'm using 1 cup of refined yellow cornmeal to 1 cup of flour, but you can play around with the type of cornmeal or adjust the ratio for different results. Less cornmeal gives you a softer dumpling, more cornmeal gives you a firmer, chewier texture. A 1-to-1 ratio lands somewhere in the middle for perfect balance. The process is still simple. Just slowly add water until a dough forms. You might find that resting the dough isn't necessary because the cornmeal makes it easier to handle. After shaping and boiling, you will get a dumpling with a nice firm bite and a bit of added flavor. Sometimes even a slight savory sweetness from the cornmeal. It's a simple, accessible variant that adds a new dimension to your meal. Cornmeal dumplings are great, but have you ever had corn dumplings? They might sound similar, but corn dumplings are a whole different beast. I need a corn that's very mature. To dry, it should be firm enough to grate. My folks used to plant corn when I was younger, so I would have this dumpling a lot close to the end of the crop. Just like with the cornmeal dumpling, I'm going to use a cup of grated corn to a cup of flour. Kneading is the same simple process and yields this coarse rough dough that I will allow to rest before shaping and boiling. Corn dumplings have an amazing texture and you'll get all that intense sweet corn flavor packed into every bite. Corn dumplings are a fantastic source of fiber, and speaking of healthy options, let's move on to the next dumpling, whole wheat dumplings. This one is also very simple. I'm using 2 cups of whole wheat flour with half teaspoon salt. The added fiber from the whole grain makes these more filling and nutritious, which is great if you're looking to add wholesome ingredients into your meals. Working with 100% whole wheat can be a bit tougher because of its density. You could cut it with all-purpose flour for a softer, more tender dough, but simply resting it makes it more workable. After resting, shape and boil. You'll end up with a dense dumpling that has a slightly nutty flavor. I find the chewier texture very satisfying, and I love these with brown stew chicken. If you're not a fan of the texture and taste of whole wheat dumplings, then this one is perfect for you. Oats have a bit more fiber than whole wheat, but they yield a milder tasting dumpling that's a lot more tender. It's still very delicious though. Whenever I make someone try oats dumpling, they always love it but can never tell that it contains oats. It's a bit more textured and chewier than plain white flour, but it also has a slight sweet taste from the oats. I've tried this with both instant and roll oats and they both give me similar results. Now that we got the grains out of the way, let's get into the veggies. Adding vegetables is a great way to bring color and variety to your dumplings. Plus they offer different textures and flavors. How you prepare veggies really influences the final taste and texture of the dumplings. We could simply grate or blend these, but for a smoother texture with a more mellow flavor, I like to cook my vegetables beforehand. But to be honest, in practice I don't often do this. If I have leftover boiled potatoes or extra roasted pumpkin, then no problem. Otherwise, unless I'm making dumplings for a guest or a special occasion, I won't go through the whole process of boiling veggies, cooling them down, making dumplings and then boiling them again. For these dumplings, instead of slowly adding water, I slowly add flour to the soft vegetables. Most of the time there's enough moisture in the veggies to make a dough. If not, just add a little water. These doughs can also benefit from resting. Pumpkin dumplings have a beautiful color and a lovely smooth texture. The flavor is rich and slightly sweet, making it one of my favorites. Sweet potato dumplings are even smoother with a more delicate texture. Despite being popular, this is my first time trying sweet potato dumplings. They have a mild sweetness and while they're good, I'm not as crazy about them as I am with this next dumpling. Callaloo, also known as green amaranth in other countries, is a very popular and delicious leafy green in Jamaica. It's usually sauteed or steamed and served with fried or boiled dumplings for breakfast. I actually made a video all about Jamaican callaloo, so I'll leave a link for you. It's a really interesting watch. But have you ever tried dumplings made with callaloo? I'm going to roughly blend a cup of chopped callaloo with the least amount of water I can get away with. Add 2 cups flour, the standard half teaspoon salt, knead to bring the dough together. After resting, shaping and boiling, we get this beautiful dark green dumpling with the earthy green flavors of Callaloo. This is the first time I'm making Callaloo dumplings and it's already one of my top favorites. Speaking of favorites, green banana dumplings were always my go-to growing up. I wasn't really a fan of dumplings when I was younger, but whenever my mom made banana dumplings, I would always have an extra one. These dumplings are super simple to make. Start by peeling and grating 3 or 4 green bananas. Grating gives the dumplings an additional texture that I really enjoy. One thing to note, green bananas will oxidize and darken the longer they are exposed to air. This doesn't affect the taste at all. In fact, I love the darker color it gives the dumplings. Since green bananas have less moisture than the other veggies we've used so far, you'll need to add more water to bring the dough together. After shaping and boiling, you end up with this beautiful purple tinged dumpling. The flavor is really unique. It's earthy, nutty, and it has a mild savory sweetness that makes them pretty addictive. The starch from the grated banana also gives them a firm yet tender bite. For these next two dumplings, grating also plays a critical role in their texture. Carrot dumplings bring a mild earthy sweetness while coconut dumplings offer a nutty richness that adds a different dimension. The grated coconut adds a delightful texture and results in a dumpling that is surprisingly soft yet still packed with a bite. I rank this one among my top 5 favorites. It pairs really well with a spicy curry dish, enhancing the meal's overall flavor. On the other hand, carrot dumplings have a soft, fibrous texture with a bit of chew. The natural sweetness of the carrot elevates the flavor profile, making these dumplings a delightful addition to any meal. Before we dive into how to store all the delicious dumplings we made, I have one more dumpling I want to talk about. Cassava is a versatile starchy root vegetable that's a staple in many tropical regions. This hardy plant thrives in poor soil and is drought resistant, making it a reliable food source in various parts of the world. In Jamaica, cassava is most famous for being used in bami, a traditional flatbread. Now, here's something interesting. Cassava can be toxic, but don't worry, it's all about preparation. As long as you peel the cassava thoroughly, this is where most of the toxins are concentrated. You're on the safe side. The key is to never eat cassava raw, as cooking neutralizes the toxins. Once peeled, I grate the cassava. The core is usually fibrous, so we don't want that. After that, it's important to rinse the cassava a couple of times to wash out the excess starch. But don't just throw that starchy water away. Let it settle for a bit and you'll notice that the starch sinks to the bottom. That's tapioca, and it can be processed into tapioca flour or tapioca pearls, which is used for things like bubble tea. Now for the cassava pulp. Just like the other dumplings, I'm adding flour, salt, and water to form a dough. After letting it rest, shaping and boiling, you end up with slightly sweet dumplings that carry that mild cassava flavor. During cooking, the cassava starch gels, giving these dumplings a unique texture. They're firm to the bite yet remain soft inside. It's incredible. So, we've covered pretty much all the Jamaican style dumplings, but I'm still not done yet. You can always take things one step further by combining different dumplings for a unique twist. Imagine mixing cornmeal and coconut or cassava and kalalo for a whole new flavor experience. There's also the option of making all these dumplings gluten-free by simply using gluten-free flour. Now that we've explored so many dumpling varieties, let's talk about how to store them and what to do with all those leftovers. Making and storing dumplings is perfect for meal prep, saving time or reducing waste when you've made a big batch and you couldn't finish it. Best method I've found is to place the shaped dumplings on wax paper or parchment paper on a baking tray. It's much better to shape the individual dumplings before storing them. A light dusting of flour prevents the dumpling from sticking together. For shorter term storage, you can refrigerate them for up to 3 days. For longer term storage, freeze them on the tray. Once frozen, transfer them into bags or space saving containers. They'll stay good for up to a couple of months in the freezer. When you're ready to enjoy your frozen dumplings, there's no need to thaw them first. Simply drop the frozen dumplings directly into a pot of boiling water. They may need an additional 5 to 10 minutes of cooking time, but they will still float when they are ready. If you have cooked dumplings, you can handle their storage in all the same ways you would with raw dumplings. When it comes to reheating, you have a couple of great options. You can add the cooked dumplings into boiling water with a pinch of salt or throw them directly into a stew to warm them up. But I think most people will agree that frying leftover dumplings is the best way to enjoy them again. Jamaicans call this one fry over dumplings. Simply slice the dumplings thinner and fry them until they are crispy on the outside. This method transforms them into one of the most satisfying breakfast sides you can have. I know some of you might say, Nick, you missed this dumpling or that dumpling. Just leave your favorites in the comments. I always look forward to hearing from you. Having a stash of dumplings can save you time and reduce waste, making them perfect for meal prep or family gatherings. Speaking of family, we just hit 50k subs. A big thanks to all of you who made this possible. I'm still working on that Q&A video. Don't know when I will be done, but feel free to leave your questions in the comments. This was awesome. Check out the next video here and I'll catch you in the next one.